Hello, Emily.
Hey, Anne, how are you?
I'm just great out here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I assume you're all sad and blue in New Haven.
Yeah, well, for Democrats in New England, it's not the best day ever, I would say.
Well, I think that a lot of Democrats in New England, in fact, like Scott Brown. Otherwise, he wouldn't have won.
Well, now we'll never know the answer to this question, though, because since the national media only got interested in this race at the last minute, we have no real exit polling data. So we don't know who voted for him.
Great, we can make stuff up. All right, so then we're allowed to make stuff up. Why did he win?
He
obviously got Democrats, so you can't just say, "Oh, poor Democrats." They were all they're Democrats, right?
Right. Okay. You asked why he won. I would argue that there are a few reasons. I mean, it's got to be some mishmash and hodgepodge, right? And it seems to me like the first one is kind of rage at Washington for not getting things done, not running the country well, not coming through in some way.
Not getting things done? I mean, it seems to me that since Scott Brown so obviously represented the 60th vote, and since Barack Obama made a special trip up there to remind people of the obvious, which is that Scott Brown was the 60th vote, and if things were to be gotten done along the path that the Democrats have been running in, that they needed the vote of Martha Coakley, or as some people like to call her, Marcia Coakley. And so if the vote was against Coakley and for Brown, that it was a message that we don't want things done and that we want them to stop it. So the anger is about not getting things done, but coming close to getting things done. And please don't do things. Quit. Stop trying to help us.
I think that's possible, but I don't think it's necessarily the right lesson to take because, it's also possible that people are frustrated with the sort of morass of Washington, right? I mean, the Republicans have been incredibly skillful at, in fact, blocking the president every which way. And it could be that people are angry about the results of those things, but this was the vehicle they had to express their anger, right? And it's particularly tricky because the people in Massachusetts have health care. So to the extent that this is a referendum on the health care bill, they are a very odd set of voters to turn to for that.
Well, I think the lack of surveys is important. I mean, why weren't there surveys about whether people were satisfied with the state-level health care program and how they were voting in this election? That should have been connected to how they were voting here. Is it that you know more about it than the rest of the country and you're trying to save the country from what happened to you? Or is it that, well, you already got yours, so you don't want to waste any of your money helping the rest of the country? We don't know that. But I'm going to assume, not just because I don't trust the health care bill, but I think that it's probably the case, and maybe this is why there weren't those surveys, that the people of Massachusetts are particularly wary about the reforms because they've seen what really happens on the ground, and they really intended to send Scott Brown there to vote against it.
Well, look, I mean, we're just going with sort of either our gut or anecdotal evidence here, but I will add my anecdotal evidence, which is that I've read a number of people quoted in the press or seen them on TV saying, hey, we've already got health care here, and I don't feel like sending a lot of money over to Nebraska because some senator there, namely Ben Nelson, got a special deal for his constituents.
Well, there was certainly a lot of anger about the way the health care reform was patched together, and votes were bought with huge amounts of special favors that went to some states and not others. We saw how Arnold Schwarzenegger started to bristle or reject the health care reform. I'm not sure how far he went, but because California wasn't getting the deal, Nebraska was. So that unevenness is a problem. I don't think it's fair to characterize Massachusetts voters as thinking, well, you shouldn't get it, we've got ours, I don't want you to have yours, but rather the more general and solid view that things should be fair and that the law should be the same from state to state. And there shouldn't be special exemptions by state. Maybe special exemptions for religious groups like the Amish, but a special treatment for Nebraska? That's crazy. That's a crazy.
Yeah, I can't imagine either of us are going to want to defend that. But on the other hand, what do you do when you're trying to enact this huge bill that, is really a landmark if it passes? You have completely unified opposition from the Republicans, all 40 of their votes marching together. And then you have the filibuster, which, as you know, not because it's written in the Constitution, not because it has a long historical lineage, but, since the 1980s has turned into sort of business as usual in the Senate. That's the combination of factors that the Obama administration and Congress was dealing with in trying to put this bill together. And it's what gave Senator Nelson so much power.
Well, the reason why they didn't get anyone on the Republican side is that they went so far to an extreme in what they were trying to do that there's no way they could have gotten bipartisanship out of that.
And what do you mean? What did you say
could barely
was so
keep
extreme?
all the Democrats together. I think
what, in your view, was so extreme about the bill?
I think it's too much of a government grasp over a large portion of the economy without having worked out how the details will play together, without doing something more modest and more incremental. I think people, even though people voted for change generically when they voted for Obama, I don't think people really want that kind of change. I don't think Americans really like to see aggressive economic experiments that displace the private sector. I think people believe in keeping the commercial sphere more in the hands of private business, which is why the Democrats tried to patch things together the way they did instead of simply straightforwardly going into a single-payer approach. But as a result, it's some crazy concoction that no one understands. No one believes that the bill has even been read. No one can see it. It's just a disturbing way to do government. And when they put up these special deals in there at the same time, these sort of leap into the dark is just shocking.
But don't you think, by the end of this bill, there is no public option, at least in the Senate version. The exchanges were run by private health insurance, so I don't really see the big government takeover there. And I agree with you that
right.
The bill was this...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
they had to do it the way that they did, keeping private business in there, but that's one of the reasons why it seems so oddly experimental. We can't really see what's happening, and it depends on private insurance being able to operate under these new conditions. Now, some people I know on the left think that it's just a big handout to private business, and they don't like it. And then people who are more moderate or conservative think that it's just a way station, that it's not going to work, and that the point of it is that it's not going to work, and that you need to do this and have it fail so that there won't be any solution but for government to come in and rescue it all. And that's really where we're ending up. So there are a lot of people who on the conservative side who suspect that it's a setup for what could never be passed straightforwardly, but that it's kind of a sneaky backdoor way to get to something that we don't support. There's just so much unknown in it, so much that seems experimental and risky, and I think people want to put on the brakes. And Scott Brown specifically offered to be that brake. He was very clear that he was going to vote against it, and the people of Massachusetts chose to do it even when Obama went up there and made a personal plea to give him that vote. I think that's very profound and very strong and needs to be responded to.
Well, I am sure it will be responded to, because one thing people in government are really good at doing is panicking about election results, and I think we're already starting to see the wheels come off as a result of this election.
Yeah, I wrote down the question, who will overreact? Possibly the answer is everyone. I mean, there's a real danger that everyone will panic, and that the Republicans will get too cocky, and the Democrats will all fall apart. I mean, and what will Obama do? I mean, I kind of think it's a great opportunity, right? Who will overreact and who will play it right?
It's going to be really interesting to see. And I think Obama has to react very quickly, at least on the healthcare front. I don't think he has very much time if he wants to keep the bill really seriously in play. You already have Democrats like Barney Frank who are defecting.
Well, is that what Obama should do? And is that what Obama wants?
Yes, well, maybe
I think it's always
going
to puzzle what he wants. I mean, I voted for him, and I sort of feel like this is a great opportunity for him to start to be the president I was hoping for him to be. You know, isn't today the anniversary of the inauguration? There's not much talk about this, but what a glum occasion.
It's not the anniversary he was hoping for, I would think. Can we talk a little bit more about Scott Brown? Because you had an interesting post up about how Scott Brown is kind of could be seen as the male Sarah Palin.
I got that from my comments. Someone brought that up. That where was the first time someone said that he was the Brown is the new male Palin. That's what one of my commenters named former law student said, and so I've sort of been running with that. And I've been interested in the way he's there's something about having a physically attractive candidate. I mean, clearly that's what Obama was. It often works to just have the right package. And we saw that with Sarah Palin, that there was something about her. People want to listen to her. People want to look at her. And it just really drives the other side crazy. The person gets extra credit for their overall image. Obama did. Palin did. And I think we're seeing some of that in Brown. I mean, the guy won. What did he win? Sexiest man in the world contest once?
We have to bring up his pickup truck right about now,
and the truck,
I think.
Drives a truck. Just
right.
like Sarah Palin came with all of these attributes, Alaska and the guns and the moose and the fishing boats and, this whole lifestyle. I mean, that was more than anything. I mean, Scott Brown hardly has any. Scott Brown just has his truck, and he drove around in his truck.
He also has a piece of Obama's resume. He was a little-known state senator until, I would say, last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think with the truck symbolizes, well, I think there's sort of a male ideal that he represents, quite aside from his policies. But on the conservative side, he's very nice looking. He's sent from Central Casting. He seems to look like John or something, right? And then he drives a truck, and he has the beautiful wife and the two beautiful daughters, one of which sings and was on American Idol. And then Obama, there's this danger that the sort of New England liberals like Obama, I don't know where Obama is really from, but he spent his time in New England. He drew attention to that in his speech. Oh, I spent my time in Boston. Did you notice he said Boston, not Cambridge? Oh, I was in Boston. And then he proceeded to, diss trucks and act like you weren't, put down people who drive trucks. I think
and
that,
of course, Martha
backlash.
Coakley played into all of this, right, by getting mixed up and thinking that Curt Schilling of the Red Sox was a Yankees fan. I mean, that's pretty much like the definition of out of touch in Massachusetts.
And right after she had mocked Brown for standing in the cold outside of Fenway Park shaking hands on a day when she had gone to Washington to, hobnob with the elite.
Right.
So
these are really these are very out of touch moves that she made, and it makes me wonder how much this election is about how bad a candidate she was and how good a candidate Brown was.
Well, that takes us back to our original question. Why did Brown win? Do you think Brown won because he's so sexy and he has a traditional family with a beautiful daughter? They love the two daughters. Obama's got the two daughters, too,
Well, don't you think it's the package? I mean, don't you think it's this rolling up? It was sort of a perfect storm. You have this moment in which Washington is a locus for a lot of anger, and the health care bill, the uncertainty surrounding it makes it less appealing to voters. Even if after it were to pass, were such a thing to happen, people felt better about it. At the moment, there are all these questions you raised and this sort of sense of uncertainty and confusion. Then you have a lousy Democratic candidate who it seemed like was, not even really running seriously for election, kind of taking it for granted. And then you have this super attractive Republican.
Well, and, people like the underdog. He's very similar to Obama, I thought. He came from behind. There was this woman out in front who seemed to think she was going to waltz right into it. So Coakley is like Hillary, right?
Right.
And then when the man seems like, to be a little feminist on this subject, the normal idea is that the man is the dominant one and the woman is the underdog. But if you get the woman out there as the front runner who thinks she's entitled and is out there, in that position, and then the man can be the underdog who's just fighting to survive, then people's desire to override the woman and get to the man becomes more satisfying. We're not just excluding women. The woman was the one who felt entitled, who thought she would walk right into the job, and then the man had to fight from behind, and that made him more attractive.
Right, I think that's right. That sort of takes us, I think, into the next thing we want to talk about, or one of the next things, this Pew survey on marriage. At least it connects up for me.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
you go
the
there
flipping,
for a little bit?
sure, that'd be great. It's the flipping around of the usual stereotypes and how we received that today. So,
right. This report is called Women, Men, and the New Economics of Marriage, and it basically shows that while it used to be women who benefited economically from getting married, now it's men. Men gain another breadwinner. Men are much more likely to gain a wife who is better educated than women are. This is sort of the catching up of the numbers we've seen for a few years of the much higher rate at which women are going to college. And you kind of, this picture comes through the mosaic of statistics, I think, in which you see, women sort of being in a position to call a lot of shots, and one imagines some amount of male resentment about the demotion in status.
You can look at the statistics of the numbers of people who have X amount of education and salaries and marriages and so forth, and then you can try to, just as you just tried to do, extrapolate what psychologically it might mean for people. But the statistics don't say whether people are happy about this or what the nature of their struggle is. It just says the way people have paired up and how that has changed. And so, I'm very interested in this. You could say, well, if I was writing a sitcom about this, I could imagine the problems would be this sort of a way. Or I think this would affect the man and the woman this sort of way, and they would be either happy or unhappy. But what is it really like? Is it better? Are you happier when you go into a life that is the traditional model, or are you happier when you've bucked the tradition and flipped things around? I think you have to go to real people to find out whether that's making them happy or not. And I think a lot depends on people's skill. And I speak from personal experience. People's skill in dealing with the situation and making what's happening to them be good rather than be a problem. You can become very absorbed in the fact that is the man being emasculated and things of that sort. But I don't think we should assume that it's making people unhappy or that women are worse off or anything like that.
That's really a good point. I was drawing on other research I've seen that suggests some of that. But I think you're right. This is very much an individual question. It has to do with mindset, right? How do you feel about your wife making more money? Or if you're the woman in this marriage, how do you feel about having more education than your husband has? Those can be things that one has complete peace of mind about that really don't affect a relationship, or they can gnaw away at you.
Now, it might be that there's something at a biological sexual level with most human beings where they're more satisfied if the man is in the dominant role.
Oh, I cannot imagine. All right, you got to cite me some really solid study to support that. Otherwise, it's going to sound like psych baloney to me. How could we be wired for men to be in the dominant role?
No. Listen to me.
Okay, I'm listening.
In the actual sexual act.
Oh, I missed that part.
Now, all right, but hear me out. But don't freak out in the because, all right, in the actual sexual act, you might want a certain kind of relationship between the male and female, especially just completely physically. And you might, from that, think that all of these other things need to be true, that the man makes more money, that the man knows more than the woman, that the man can out-talk the woman, and that the woman will feel kind of like the lesser one in all respects, and that people, and traditionally that's the way men and women have related to each other. But it might be better to flip that around so that there are different ways in which there's some ways in which the woman has more, the man has less, or some ways in which there's like a dominance and subordination that gets flipped around, and it's not just what has traditionally been true. People could be happier that way. It's the conventional thing, it's the traditional thing. I hope everyone's not getting horribly mad at me right now, but I'm trying to say something that I think is really important, because a lot of women are going into this situation. I think a lot of women might think, well, I just won't be able to get married, or won't be able to find a mate, because women are so much more, and this will become more and more true in the future, women are so much more educated than men, that the men out there who are available are what they are, and I won't be able to pair up with them. Whereas if the roles were reversed, the men wouldn't have any trouble choosing from the pool of available women. But I think that there are ways in which one can still be satisfied in a sexual relationship, even though you don't have that overwhelming across-the-board domination coming from the male.
Right. One can imagine separating those two things, right? Even if you want to go with the idea for a while that men have to be dominant sexually, that's like a power dynamic that a lot of women find appealing. And I think there is some research that supports that. You can imagine a way in which the bedroom is walled off from the rest of a relationship, and you don't necessarily have to have the same kind of domination going on outside of it, right?
Yeah, at all, or you don't even want it. There's certain things that you want to have chemistry in a sexual relationship, And then that doesn't necessarily have to go with a whole set of attributes of everything else about your life. And it might actually work better for, at least for a modern American woman, for it to not be the conventional arrangement.
Right.
I think maybe there are a lot of men who feel that unless they have the economic and social dominance, educational dominance in other respects, they won't be able to perform well sexually. They won't be able to find the woman attractive. I mean, there's a stereotype of men thinking. I mean, and I just to take this back to Hillary and Martha Coakley. There's a stereotype that women who are dominant in their careers are not, and in politics, are not sexually attractive. And that's one of the reasons why people get so jazzed up about Sarah Palin, is because she is. Right? She maintains
and she doesn't
this
fall
sexual
prey to the same. Yeah, we're used to these very flattening stereotypes, and there are only a couple of them, right? I mean, women in politics are either kind of monsters or they're bitchy in a way that's unattractive, and Sarah Palin was really able to bust through all of that.
Or they're not really monsters and bitchy. It's just that there's something about the human mind that looks at what they are, perceives their powerfulness, their domination, and exaggerates how monstrous or bitchy that is, because just as they might look at a man who seemed too feminine, and it would provoke this kind of revulsion. It really kind of is like homophobia, kind of a physical level revulsion that may take place even in people who intellectually don't want to be like that, but they're finding these people unattractive. But I think
it's almost beyond their control. And also, I mean, obviously, this is a problem that powerful women contend with outside of politics as well. It's like a famous problem with women who are the boss.
And finding a mate. I'm just saying that in a world where more and more women are powerful, how do those women find sexual partners? Or how do they find someone to marry? The men aren't going to be... They're not going to be enough men at the level to match up with them. And a lot of the men that are going to pick traditional marriages where they find women who do make less money, who do have less dominance. So of the women who are the powerful women, who are they supposed to marry? Where are they supposed to go? I'm just saying that this demographic trend is so strong that we need to find new ways to really be able to... I mean, I've talked with some, I know a lot of women law professors, and you're just going way back, not to name names, but people who would say, I think what women need to do is just, the women professors, we don't look for other professors. That's not what you want. Look for, you should be looking at the men in the trades and so on. Or there should be other lines of types of careers that the men that would be good for you are in. It shouldn't be another professor. It shouldn't be someone in your... And so that sort of Pew Report differential, that could be not just, oh no, this is a problem, but we're finally getting on a path that actually will work well and it will be good for women. You just need to learn how to see it the right way and have a life like that works out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems to me that there are kind of two deeper questions you're raising. One is whether women can change who they're looking for, and maybe how they conceive of a marriage. Maybe you don't necessarily have to get all of your intellectual stimulation and partnership from your husband if you're going to kind of look outside of your own profession or your own exactly precise socioeconomic and education level. And then the second question is whether men can have a mind shift in how they think about who they want to be married to, and whether there are actually some really attractive things about being married to a woman who's making more money than you are, in that she opens doors to things you get to do, things you get to buy that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Can you hear me? I'm getting instant messages from my husband saying...
he can hear you? Okay. He's telling you
Well, he's
to shut
in the
up?
other room, and he said, no, he's not telling me to shut up. You see? You have a lot of... He said, what is he saying? He's saying that he brought up Todd Palin, that a smart, powerful, educated woman, I mean, you might not think that's true of Sarah Palin, but someone in that kind of dominant political position might be ideally mated to someone like Todd Palin. Although I think there might be a theory about Todd Palin that he is, politically hungry, and this is all a pose, this fisherman business, and he's working through her, and he has a lot of, really right-wing ideas, and she's just the front person.
One thing that's interesting about Todd Palin is we don't really read him as emasculated. I don't have a lot of people
That's
saying,
right, exactly.
Oh, poor Todd
He's not
Palin,
at all
right?
emasculated. No, and in fact, just to go back to women professors, I like to
Of whom you are one.
Yeah, I'm a law professor. It may be that the male professor is not the most masculine, dominant person that you really want. And that if you're a fairly dominant, powerful woman, you might need a particularly powerful man. That doesn't mean someone who's in your economic and education group. Those men might actually be, less powerful. And that someone who is, runs his own fishing business or whatever might be someone who is a more satisfying mate for you.
Perhaps. I mean, and one thing that this is challenging is our tendency, I think, societally to stick with people who are a lot like us. We don't often venture beyond these obvious divisions. And it would be certainly a really interesting trend if that changed.
Yeah, I should write a book on this subject. I'm just getting an IM that said, from my husband saying, men in the trades in pickup trucks should consider female law profs as romantic mates.
Who is he trying to marry you off to, your husband?
No, he's just saying not me, but there are a lot of lady law profs out there. There are a lot of women professors. There are a lot of accomplished women who say they can't find men.
Your husband is ready to be their advisor, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that there are also a lot of men who need to... men and women need to sort of break down this wall and see that there should be matches across this divide and not be so affected by the traditional stereotype about male dominance. It really could work better if these educated, high-earning women were matched up to men who, not men. New York Times article on this subject pictured like a man in his 20s who was a budding musician. In other words, so you're picturing this sort of slacker guy who really isn't going to make it. But there are a lot of men who are in different kinds of trades and kinds of fields, business and so forth, who they're not just trying to sponge off the woman. It's just that they're in different kinds of lines of work. And, you have to take seriously the fact that school is modeled around female talents and tastes, sitting at a desk, and not all females, but just on a bell curve. And there are a lot of female teachers, and a lot of males don't do that well in school. A lot of males are kind of demonized in school and, given their... Ritalin or whatever, they're more active, they have a more difficult time fitting into the traditional school model, and it's just shown in these statistics in the Pew Report that they don't go on to more schooling. They choose other paths, and if that's to be the demographics, it's important for people to find new ways to match up and to enjoy those matches, not suffer because of them, but actually really affirmatively enjoy them.
Right. No, I think that is a great call to arms, Anne, and I will certainly read your book on the topic.
I need to write that book.
I know. That's why I'm encouraging you. I'm all for it. It's a really good subject for you. I want to go back just for a minute to what you said about school, because I do think that that's one of the issues underlying the Pew Report is the degree to which women are succeeding better at getting into college and doing well in college. And it's this strange thing because, and maybe this will start to change too, and we're kind of just at the beginning of this and we can't see it, but, traditionally, historically, women have done well in school and then they get into the workplace and men still outpace them there, and we don't really have an answer for that. But it'll be interesting to see if that trend too starts to change, and whether there's even more to this notion of women being on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you remember reviving Ophelia and all that stuff. There was this idea that girls in school were losing all of this ground when they hit middle school or whatever. And I think there was a lot of attention paid to that. There's a lot of vigor in feminism to try to make school and careers really work for girls. And it's been very successful, but at the same time, I think a lot of boys lost out, and a lot of men found other things to do than be under the thumb of the female teacher, and they went out and did other things. Now, you could say, well, that's maybe education should be changed again, and things should be done to help the young men. But you could also say maybe this is as it should be. Maybe if the learned professions are more or disproportionately female, maybe that's the way it should be. And maybe men are off doing other things that work well for men. As you said, there was often this discussion of how men, even though they didn't do as well in school, once they got into the commercial world, they got ahead of women, because of prejudice or because there were other attributes that were useful in success that women didn't have. That women could do well in school, but when they got out, they didn't as effectively use what they had learned to be successful in business or the professions.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, good. That's indeed.
Can I just go back to one subject that we didn't talk about? There was that book Game Change. Then we talked about how before we started recording, we talked about Elizabeth Edwards and how she was portrayed in that book. And there's also, I haven't read the book yet. I read the excerpt in New York Magazine that concentrated on Elizabeth Edwards, and there's also material about Hillary Clinton. And these are both examples of powerful women who had we were talking a moment ago about Todd Palin is maybe behind Sarah Palin, but Elizabeth Edwards and Hillary Clinton were both behind this charming man who was their front person. And I'm wondering how you think about that in connection with these subjects about the dominant man and then the woman who really wants to be powerful but has to sort of be behind a man, and the frustrations that leads to.
Right. Well, I mean, in both marriages, there was betrayal as a result of those arrangements. And then you have a difference between them, obviously, which is that Hillary Clinton clearly has become a politician in her own right. And in some ways, the Clintons' marriage, there are lots of other things to be said about it, but one is that they've really taken turns being the person whose
they just
career
played
is in
out
ascendance.
They played out the timeline longer. The Clintons are an advanced case of the Edwards. The Edwards just didn't get as far because John Edwards wasn't as talented and Elizabeth Edwards was sick. I mean, they're different people, but it's the same model. It's the same model of the woman, instead of going out and being on her own dominant, takes the strategy of being behind a man. Now, in maybe years from now, the woman that is Elizabeth Edwards or Hillary Clinton will just go out in front and be that person for herself. And what I'm thinking is just that the Sarah Palin model, whatever you think of Sarah Palin, the Sarah Palin model is a better one, which is, you may need a mate. You want a marriage. Not that it's not okay to not be married and not that it's wrong to be a lesbian, but if you're going to be a woman who wants to be married to a man, that it would be better instead of, subordinating yourself to someone who's doing what you want to do, which is what Hillary and Elizabeth did, to have a man that has your back, who is doing something else, like Todd Palin. The powerful women should want their Todd Palin, not their Bill Clinton or John Edwards. And look what John Edwards and Bill Clinton did to those women. Then they found other women more attractive. Look what they did. Like the powerful, dominant type woman who tried to take the subordinate role behind that man ended up getting betrayed when the man found attractive some woman who was more like the conventional woman. So it may be a terrible strategy to try to go into the traditional stereotype if you really are the dominant, powerful woman. I say find your Todd Palin.
I think that's a great note to end on, Anne. That should definitely be one of the pieces of advice you give in your book about marriage. A whole chapter called Find Your Todd Palin.
Yeah.
It was really fun to talk with you, as always.
Okay. Is that the end?
I think that's the end, don't you?
Well, I feel like I talked too much, so
no,
I would like you to...
Don't worry.
I want to try to get you to talk some more, because I feel like I over-talked. But,
well, you just have to take a breath. Let me in for air. Sometimes I give up and just interrupt you.
No, I want you to interrupt me. And then also say anything that you. I mean, I wanted you to say something more about how everyone's feeling over there on the.
In New England,
Martha Coakley side, or New England, or in Washington, to the extent that you're in contact with people in Washington.
I am in contact with people in Washington. But let's end this, and then I can just tell you what I think. I'm going to turn mine off.
Okay.